Lofink holds that the second creation story, the first creation story, and the account of the New Jerusalem in the book of the Revelation of John shows that God desires the whole world to be saved. God desires the salvation of everyone. But how can God do it? Right? Lots of people have tried to change the world. Right? Every revolution, he says, sought to free the masses, change circumstances, save people from misery. But a lot of times, these attempts to change the world, unfortunately, resulted in more misery. This is because, Lofink says, all revolutionaries have a problem. No time. Right? They have to use violence. They can't wait eons. They want to see the change now. They want to see the change in their lifetimes. Right? So what do they got to do? Well, they got to eliminate the oppressors. Right? Power of the people means getting rid of the people who are in power. Right? So what goes on then? Afterwards, then they're using power a lot of times to enforce their vision, the continuance of the vision. And this kind of power is often violence. Right? So that's not freedom. Right? Killing someone is not giving them freedom, is it? Saying, follow me or die, that's not the kind of freedom that we saw in the garden or in the new city. Right? This is not the vision that God has for changing the world. It's not his style of revolution. So you see what happens a lot of times when people try to change the world real fast. Bad stuff. Love this line here from Lofink. God, like all revolutionaries, right? He is identifying God as a revolutionary, someone who's trying to change society, right? Give us a new and better life, helping us to be born again. See what he's getting at here? Like all revolutionaries, God desires the overturning, the radical alteration of the whole society. And the change must be radical. He wants a full revolution. Right? I'm not saying, oh, you know, revolutionaries go too fast, that's the problem. No, he wants a change. The misery of the world cries to heaven, and it begins deep within the human heart. But how can he do it without becoming the oppressor himself, right? How can God force people to be free? You can't. You can't force people to be free. Not on the level that God desires us to be free. Totally free to respond to him in complete freedom. To love the way he loves. Not because we have to, because we want to. Right? How can anyone change the world and society at its roots without taking away freedom? How can you change the world without oppressing the oppressors? So to speak, right? How can you relieve the world of the acts of the monstrous acts without becoming a monster yourself? Lofink says, you start in one place. God doesn't try to do it all at once. He's not promoting radical upheavals via violence. He's going to make a real change in a real person, in a real place. And then invite other people to come join in as they like. Everybody must have the opportunity to come and see this new thing. Right? The chance to see it. And if they want to, join in. That's the way that the divine revolution works, right? It's like the it's like the apostles when they met Jesus and knew he was the Messiah, or the Samaritan woman at the well, right? Has the same phrase, right? Come and see. Come and see the man, right, who has told me everything I've ever done. Come and see. We found the one Moses wrote about law. No, not you have to do this because this is the way that it has to be for you to be free. No, come and check it out. And this is the only way freedom can be preserved, right? Not driving someone into a new thing. It cannot be forced. Even moral pressure, Loafing says. You know, even pressuring people into it by using a guilt trip or something. That's not work. That's a kind of violence, right? There's a psychological violence. Guilt trips. That's not about this. All right, time out. Got to drop a question here for Dr. Father Loafing. He's talking about these non-violent means that God's going to use. He says God's just going to do little things, right? He's not going to force people, right? He's not going to have violent upheavals in which he becomes the oppressor. What about the flood? Isn't that exactly what happened in the flood? Didn't God just kill everybody to start over? All right? Loafing doesn't talk about the flood in this section, at least not in that way. He does mention it, but he does bring this up. But if you think about it, the flood doesn't really contradict Loafing. Why? It didn't work. The flood story is not pointing to be like, here's the way to do it, right? No, in the flood story, which, by the way, is a myth, a broken myth, it's adapted from early Mesopotamian myths, like the legend of Utnapishtim. You know what happens in that story? The gods flood the earth, not because there was too much sin and human life was too hard and they wanted to help the humans out. They wanted to give them a do-over, like in the Genesis story. No, they flood the earth because the humans are too noisy. They're just annoying them. These guys are so annoying, let's kill them all, right? And then Utnapishtim, he escapes with the help of one of the demigods, and he fills up an ark, and it's built the same way that Noah's Ark is described. And but he didn't fill it with people and animals. You know, Noah's Ark is filled with people and animals. That's what God cares about, life, right? In the legend of Utnapishtim, he fills it with gold, right? And then he lands on the mountain of the gods, and he gives them the gold, and they're like, "Oh, nice job. We love gold. Bam, you can have immortality." Right? It's different. It's way different, right? When you understand that it's changed from another myth, if you look at the older story, you say, whoa, they're actually saying that God is preserving life here. God cares about life, right? Not he wants to wipe it out. He's actually trying to help the humans, right? If you understand the context. Anyway, though, it doesn't contradict Loafing because it just doesn't work, right? The flood doesn't stop anything. As a matter of fact, Noah, as soon as God makes the covenant with Noah after the flood, he gets drunk, and then his son sees him naked, and he curses his son, and it's just a bad scene. So there's not the new society, all right? That's not how it's going. That's not how it's working, obviously. Okay, so what does Genesis 1 to 11 talk about? The stories that we already talked about earlier, particularly the first and second creation story and Cain and Abel, right? Well, we see the growth of human civilization and culture, right? We see people growing. We see the Tower of Babel. People are coming into cities and making big towers, right? I think, hey, we can reach the sky. We're seeing all this stuff happening, but we're also seeing the growth of rivalry and violence, right? And we see the nations split. People are breaking off into groups. You know what nations do in the ancient world? They war, right? So in Genesis 12, though, there's a new beginning. So Genesis 11 is kind of like the peak of that corruption that we talked about in Genesis 2, 3, and 4, right? And it just keeps going. In Genesis 6, 9, God gives it a do-over, but then 10, 11, things just bad again. It doesn't work. He does it that way, right? So in Genesis 12, we're going to have a new beginning. And it begins with one guy in one place. Just this one guy. God says, hey, you, stop living here, leave your father's land, live to another place, and move to another place, and I'll make a great nation of you. And the whole world will be blessed through you. Right? I'll make your name great so that you will be a blessing. Or if you translate it a different way, and some people think is actually a more accurate translation, through you all nations will bless themselves. Right? Or through you all peoples will bless themselves. It's a great phrase. But what is the promise? It's a promise. God just makes this one guy in this one time, in this one place. And Abraham does it. He goes for it. He trusts God. Right? Abraham, still Abram at this point. Abram believes the Lord, and he credits him an act of righteousness. I use these names interchangeably because he's known as Abram in the beginning of the story, and then his name gets changed to Abraham. It's actually one of the ways that people say it looks like these were multiple sources. Right? But in the story it signifies a change of life. People in the Bible often get a new name when they have this major breakthrough in life, major development in their lives. Anyways, what we see is this: he's going to leave this old society. He's going to make possible a new society. And what makes it possible? That he believes in the promise that God gives him. He trusts God. Right? Remember, Lofink is saying that trust is the opposite of sin. Right? Trusting to see the good in God, trusting to see the good in other people, right? Being open to that. That's the opposite of everything that causes sin. That's the opposite of the kind of rivalry and tension and antagonism that causes all the evil in the world. So he gets this promise and he trusts in it. And that's the new society.